It is 8:30. I'll go ahead and call this morning's meeting of the Clay County Board of Commissioners to order. Our first item of the agenda this morning is an approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gross to approve.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. The second item this morning is our citizens to be heard portion of the meeting. Are there any citizens in the audience wishing to address the board on any issue not on the agenda? Seeing none, Steve?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I had an inquiry by a citizen who watches online, and they mentioned that the comments portion are turned off. Is there a reason why that is, or?
I've asked that question before, and the reason is that online Facebook stream is not manned by staff. So
Okay.
There's not an ability to have an official comment from or notification from staff on those comments.
Or in the event that there's something that shouldn't be on there.
Right, so we've always tried to steer folks to sending messages or going through the website.
Very good. That was the first time it's ever been asked of me, and I thought I would bring it up. Thank you.
Steve, have we had any inquiries?
We have not, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you. The approval of the payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gross to pay the bills and vouchers, a second by Commissioner Campbell. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. The approval of the minutes from the April 12th, 2022 County Board meeting.
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Campbell to approve the minutes as presented,
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Ebinger. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. Our next item this morning is a proclamation for our County Staff Appreciation Day, which is today. Steve?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Today is an exciting day within Clay County, but specifically here, throughout the state of Minnesota, but specifically here within Clay County, as we have the opportunity to acknowledge the great work of our employees. Earlier this month, as you are aware, Governor Walz proclaimed that April 26th would be Minnesota County Staff Appreciation Day. And while each of us in this room certainly recognize how fortunate we are to work with such talented people, it's a great opportunity to again highlight them publicly and not just within our departments. Our staff consistently have displayed resiliency, hard work, flexibility, all with the goal of providing excellent customer service to our citizens here within Clay County. And so we're very excited for the opportunity to acknowledge that. With that, I'd yield to Madam Chair.
Thank you. We do have a resolution to proclaim this today, and I would like all of us to collectively read that.
Whereas Minnesota's 87 counties employs over 36,000 people to provide essential services to create a healthy, safe, and vibrant community, and
Whereas Clay County's 600-plus staff act as the cornerstone of this community, taking great pride in providing excellent customer service when responding to citizen needs by dedicating their time, skills, and expertise for the benefit of their neighbors, resulting in a high quality of life in Clay County. And
Whereas the vital work of county staff promotes healthy communities, fosters conditions for economic growth, strengthens infrastructure, and improves residents' quality of life. And
Whereas, although the state has turned the corner on the COVID-19 pandemic, county staff continues their exemplary work, assisting with recovery through vaccination clinics and preparing for the American Rescue Plan's multi-year recovery effort. And
whereas the Office of Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan asked to proclaim April 26, 2022 as County Staff Appreciation Day, and the request was granted. And
Now, therefore, we, the Clay County Board of Commissioners, proclaim April 26th, 2022 as County Staff Appreciation Day, and we extend our thanks and gratitude to the staff of our county and express deep gratitude for their commitment to excellence in public service. Adopted this, the 26th day of April, 2022.
Madam Chair, I'd move the proclamation.
Of a
Second.
motion by Commissioner Campbell to adopt the County Staff Appreciation Day proclamation, a second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The proclamation is granted. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think it's also probably safe to say that I hope it doesn't take a proclamation for our staff to know how much we deeply appreciate the work that they do every single day within our county. I spoke at a appreciation staff luncheon yesterday, and oftentimes this board struggles and weighs the pros and cons of programming, and we have to make tough decisions on that, but we are constantly made aware of the huge benefit that our staff provides to our citizens and the positive impact that they make in their lives. And even if you were to positively affect one person, your job is worthwhile. You do such a great job of making sure that you're responding to the needs of our citizens, and we just are so grateful for that. So thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, also just a note to, we will be having a celebration in the form of a picnic again this year, and so we would just ask that our employees will notify them. We're looking at probably a June date, but we don't have that dialed in exactly at this point. But we will be having that celebration this summer.
Well, great. I will look forward in hope to a day in June that doesn't have snow, and we can be hopeful that sunny days are coming. But anyway, thank you very much for that. Our next item this morning is a proclamation and updates from our Child Abuse Prevention Month supervisors from the Social Service Department. We have Amy Amundsen, we have Quinn and Michelle. Rhonda's here for support if needed. Good morning.
Good morning. We got some treats. We'll have a seat.
We just wanted to provide an update to you guys just kind of on what's been going on, at least this year. I know in the proclamation we spoke to 2021 data. Obviously, that's old now at this point. So just to give you guys kind of an update, at least front-end child protection work, we're averaging about in between 25 and 30 new cases a month in 2022, give or take. Primary reasons being drug-related. Of course, it's a huge problem in our community. Drug-related cases being the highest, truancy and educational neglect being number 2, quite a few sex abuse and physical abuse cases as well. So we're seeing quite the plethora of different child protection cases that are coming in. We also kind of wanted to speak to the challenges that we face, both front end and the case management side of things. We still and always have a lack of foster homes. We could always use more. Even when we have them, it seems like they fill up quite quickly, unfortunately. Staff turnover continues to be a problem. It's a very difficult job, and we see that take its toll on our staff that we have. We've also seen a pretty significant increase in parent and child mental health, and then with that, drug use that occurs to cope with that mental health, just the services that are needed to help address that. We also see a lack of affordable housing. It's not uncommon that Churches United is full and an overflow. I think that's where they're currently at right now, is that there's just nowhere for people to go. Sometimes we hit barriers when it comes to licensing relatives. Obviously if kiddos can't be with moms and dads, we want them to be with family members, but those family members then have to be licensed. So barriers that come along with the licensing process continue to hurt a little bit. And finding appropriate placements for children that have significant mental health. So residential treatment facilities and just services that can prevent that placement from occurring continue to be something that we struggle with. I think that's the updates that I had.
We just wanted to talk a little bit too about our case numbers and outcomes that we had. Did you want to mention that?
So in 2021, we were able to, well, not we, our staff or the families, due to their hard work, we were able to reunify 34 children to their reunification home, which is a great statistic. Did you want to go in? He talked about the out-of-home, but was there any other?
And then if those children were not be able to return home, we had 24 children who reached permanency in 2021. We had 6 kids who were the custody was transferred over to their relatives, whether it's grandpa, grandpas, aunts, uncles, and we had 18 adoptions. And currently this year, we've already had 16 kiddos who reached permanency with 15 adoptions and 1 transfer of custody to a relative. And currently, as of today, we have 119 children in out-of-home care.
Sorry, I'm just reflecting on that number. That's a lot. Does the board have any questions for staff? Dave?
Just having run a juvenile and family unit myself many years ago, when I came to Moorhead as police chief, I was really surprised at the amount of child abuse that is within our community in many levels. And with the use of drugs that's increased in the last 5 years, it really resonates with me, the task you guys are facing. I just want to thank you for being there. When I was in law enforcement, people in your position that found a place for the kids to land were probably the bright spot we had in getting a lot of resolution in the cases we investigated. And I would ask people in our community to be aware of this, particularly over the COVID period where kids weren't in schools and professionals weren't there to monitor some of the signs that are happening. We need to really watch not just our own kids, but the kids around us for signs of that and speak up. And I know you have a constant battle finding adequate foster homes and places for these kids to land. And if someone's in a position to reach out like so many people have that I've met here, please do so. But thank you for the efforts you put in. I know it's not always a rewarding and it can be a very frustrating experience, so thanks.
So, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kaylee?
On the difficulty with finding foster homes, can you talk a little bit about how big is that river for a barrier, you know, if families live in North Dakota instead of Minnesota?
For children to be placed, if they have family in North Dakota, we have to go through a process called Interstate Compact. Basically, you have to get permission from North Dakota to be able to place there. It can be difficult. They have to pass background checks. Paperwork takes time. It does occur, but it just pushes everything back. So it's just not an easy process necessarily to do that.
I also want to echo what Commissioner Ebbinger said about we all need to pay attention to the kids in our community. And I think we should change how we talk about the kids in our community. These are our children. They are my children. They are your children. So if you see the kids down the street are hungry or there's nobody home, open your doors and pay attention and be a safe space, be a safe person in the community, and don't be afraid to call and check in with mom and dad or whoever the caregiver is. So we can take the best care of our most precious asset and our kids.
Commissioner Gross?
How many people does Cass County have in foster care? Do you know? Not that you need to know those figures, but I was just wondering if you knew.
I don't know that number offhand, sorry.
All right, thank you.
Just to reflect on that number, 119, that would include, though, kids who maybe are in placement due to treatment, like a voluntary. It includes our probation kiddos, and then it includes all of the children that are placed through social services.
I think as a historical number, not that we're celebrating the number that you have, but there were a few years ago where we were seeing numbers upwards of 160 and 80, correct? I mean, I remember those years, and those were equally as challenging as now. Certainly, those difficulties don't change with a lower number, but I'm hopeful that we can continue to bring this to light, and there are great homes available. I know that some folks that we are acquainted with have recently jumped into the foster care and potential adoption world, and I think that there are wonderful people that maybe just don't think that it's something that they're ready to do, but a lot of people do, and I think that it just takes one home to make a huge difference for one person or multiples. Commissioner Campbell.
Yeah, thank you. I also want to send a message to your staff, for you three and your staff as well, for the difficult jobs that they have. I can't imagine how difficult it is, and under those circumstances, to have to separate families. Obviously, nobody wants to do it, but it needs to be done for the benefit of the child. And I just can't imagine those of you who work with that every day, during your entire work career. So thank you to all of you for what you do. I agree with all of this, that these kids they're a part of all of us. I have grandkids, and they're, I would certainly hope if there's trouble down the street as they're walking, that people will help point that out and make sure that everyone stays safe. I'm proud to be wearing this prevent child abuse button today. I thank you for that, and hopefully we can continue to carry that message for you. So thank you.
So today, there is a proclamation that we've included, and feel that it would be really send a strong message of this board support to issues within the community. So I would like us to collectively read that one as well. Child Abuse Prevention Proclamation. Whereas our children are our most valuable resource and will shape the future of Minnesota and Clay County.
Whereas in the year 2021, Clay County Social Services completed 396 assessments and investigations of families and licensed facilities, assessed 455 children for alleged child abuse or neglect, provided 207 families with child protection case management, and 79 families with child welfare case management, and provided care and services for 221 children in out-of-home placement.
Whereas child abuse is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community and can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that may cause lifelong consequences for victims of abuse.
And whereas effective child abuse prevention succeeds because of meaningful and trusting partnerships created between parents, practitioners, schools, faith communities, healthcare organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community.
And whereas family-serving, youth-focused prevention programs offer positive alternatives for young people, encourage parents and youth to develop strong ties to the communities, as well as provide protective factors to reduce or eliminate risk by promoting social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children.
Whereas we acknowledge we must look together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to the promotion of children and families' social and emotional well-being in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment.
Whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clay County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaim April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Clay County and call upon all citizens, community agencies, religious organizations, medical facilities, neighbors, and businesses to increase their participation in efforts to prevent child abuse and neglect, thereby strengthening the communities in which we live.
Madam Chair, I'd move the proclamation.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Campbell to support the proclamation, a second by Commissioner Kaylee, and I think third, fourth, and fifth from the rest of us. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The proclamation passes. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Item number 3 this morning, our Highway Department requests. Our county engineer, David Overbo, is joining us on Teams. I think we also have staff in the audience if needed. Good morning, Dave. Your first item is the approval of yearly supply bids.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. thank
Yes, good morning. Can you hear? All right. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We
you.
have
Just a second,
three items.
we're echoing for a minute.
I wonder if he's double.
We got 3 items on our agenda for today.
Okay, we're good now. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. First item being yearly supplies. We've got 4 different yearly supplies that we advertise for, and essentially they're kind of a list of either resources and or contractors. The first one being bids for corrugated metal culverts, and that is from True North Steel. They provide us quite a lengthy list of different sizes of pipes that we order throughout the year. The second yearly supply bid is bituminous mixture, and that is asphalt that we would haul in our own trucks for repairing roads. We got 2 different supplying sources there, that being Central Specialties and Northern Improvement. And the third yearly supply bid is rental of construction equipment, and that is if we need a larger backhoe than we have, or additional trucks or skid steers or various equipment. There's 4 different contractors that supply to various pieces of equipment. And the last yearly supply bid is our gravel bidding, and we just got 1 bidder this year on that, and that's Turner Sand and Gravel. And I would like to recommend that we award townships 1 through 30 to Turner Sand and Gravel. So that concludes our yearly supplies.
I just had a clarification on that. On the graveling bids, we do have 2 companies. Did one company?
Yeah, correct.
Did one
I
company
forgot that.
withdraw those?
No, I'm in there. They're Fitzgerald
Okay.
Construction as well.
Okay.
I forgot that they're.
That's okay. I think it's
two
still,
different sheets.
we still are seeing that one company would have all the low bids, but I just wanted a point of clarification that there were 2 companies that bid.
Correct. Yep. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay, so our first item, the supply bid piece, does any board member, are we going to do a separate motion for the metal culverts, the bituminous, right?
Yes, that would be the
Okay.
preferred way, Madam.
So let's go through the first piece, the metal culverts, board questions on that for our engineering staff.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gross to approve the corrugated metal culvert bids.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Campbell. Further discussion? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 2 this morning is the bids for the bituminous mixture. Questions for staff? Wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve the bituminous bid.
A motion by Commissioner Gross to accept all the bids for the bituminous.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Kaylee. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The third item this morning is the bids for the rental of construction equipment.
Madam Chair, I'd move the list.
We have a motion by Commissioner Campbell to approve the bids for the 2022 equipment rental.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. The next piece would be the graveling.
Madam Chair, I'd move the low bid of Turner Sand and Gravel for townships 1 through 3.
We have a motion to approve the graveling by Commissioner Campbell,
Second.
second by Commissioner Ebinger. Dave, my only question is, I've been part of this for a few years, and we usually get quite a handout in terms of the bids, and I know that the aggregate, there are challenges with aggregate right now, but are you concerned that at the number of bids that we received on these?
Right, normally we get definitely more bidders on the gravel. I'm not exactly sure if some of the other contractors we had before just have that much more work. Haven't really heard what the situation was. We did a little check on the prices just to see, how the prices compared to last year. And obviously with the price of fuel, things have went up a little bit, and it tallies up to about 14% higher than 2021. So on $8.50, $9 gravel, that's about $1.15 to $1.20 per ton more. We did lower our quantity just a little bit because we've been trying to catch up, and we've been graveling heavier the last 2 or 3 years. So we went down a little bit on our quantity, which probably helped a little bit too with our increase in pricing. But hopefully in the future, I guess we get more competition there.
Dave, my last question is, it seems as though a lot of this is coming out of our county pit in terms of the tonnage. I mean, this seems to be a substantial amount more than we typically take out of that for this. Where do we stand over last year? What are our estimates based on the tonnage that's in there still?
I think it's kind of comparable to what we've done in the past. We have tried to do everything we can to minimize and extend the life of the pit. We are trying to expand a little bit to the south. We're not really getting very far with that as far as with environmental agencies. We are going to continue to take material around the edges down into the water, and then there's a lot of sand. Sand is a very readily component out there. It's just the clay binder is harder to come by. There is also a very large portion on the western edge that we're going to continue to mine on. But I think we're going to be okay. It's just the ability for townships to also extract material out of our pit. We've had to stop that just because there's the uncertainty of how long the pit's going to last with the condition that it's in until we can either expand a little bit more to the south, and there's good material there. It's just it gets closer to the buffers on the portion and the endangered and threatened species. We're kind of walking through that a little bit, and said we're not really getting anywhere. The amount of that we might be able to expand is probably 7 or 8 acres versus 30 acres that we were hoping. But it does seem like there's a little more out here. I know last year Turner Sand and Gravel took material from a different source up in this area, but this year he did bid it out of our more yards out of our pit. But, I think we should be fine there. Township number 2A, as you see, that is actually Whiting Township. That's 6,000 yards. That's a pretty big quantity. They didn't get gravel last year, so they're going to get it this year, but that's coming out of Coast Pit, so that's not coming out of the county pit. But some of the other yardages you can see they're not real big, 500, 400. There's one, township number 3 is 28.
So Dave, you're cutting out a little bit, and I understand where you're at, and I think that the highway.
I think we should be okay for this year. We'll have to keep analyzing.
Okay. Justin might have to kick in because Dave's cutting out, but I want us to be aware of that. I think that's a lot of tonnage coming out of our pit particularly. I think that, it's nice to see that I think we have lower costs when we're generating from up there, but I just want us to be aware of that as we move forward.
Right,
Board
thank you very much.
wishes?
I think we have a motion, don't we, on the,
I don't think we do we?
for the,
I don't have a-
accepting the gravel bids?
I don't have, no.
I thought I made the motion to accept.
You made the
Madam
rental.
Chair, we had Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Ebinger.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mark that down, Kevin. Thank you. So we do have a motion and a second to accept all of the low bids for townships 1 through 30. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That item passes. Thank you. We did have, Dave, thanks for sticking around. We do have, just wanted to have a brief flood update if possible.
Right, I got 2 more items on our agenda as well, and I do have information for the flooding, if you want me to go through that first, or?
Let's do your other bids, I'm sorry. The next
Okay.
item is the approval of the low bid for the 4 bridge replacements.
Right, we opened bids on this last week, and as you remember, they came in a little higher than our engineer's estimate. We've since put together the abstract, and we've sent that to the funding engineer from MnDOT, and it was good news. The bridge bond funds did cover the overage, and then our local share that we were budgeting for in our 5-year plan was $10,000 per site for these 2, and they actually came in about $7,700 and $8,700. So our local share did remain what we had anticipated. It's actually a little bit less, and then bond funds were able to fill the gap in on the increase in price. So we would request approval of the low bidder, Ulen Excavating, for a combined price for the two county projects and the 2 township projects at $996,247.25.
Thank you, Dave. Board questions or wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve the bid for Hool Contract Excavating.
Motion by Commissioner Gross to accept the bid.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you so much. Item C is the approval to advertise for the turn lane reconstruction project on Highway 10 and Cusson 19.
Right, this is the one we've been working on with the city of Glennon. It's the turn lane off of Highway 10, southbound onto Park Avenue or our County Road 19. We finally got all the agreements, and the process has worked through with the state, and we were able to set a letting date, and we were going to recommend June 7th for that. So we'd like to get the ad in the paper, and there is going to be quite a lead time, I believe, on the signal. The mast arm needs to be extended because the turn lane is pushing a little bit to the southwest. So the sooner we can get it advertised, then the sooner we can, get a bidder and get the materials purchased, and then hopefully we can get it constructed this year yet.
Okay. Board wishes.
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Campbell to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Thank you. Dave, now you can provide a brief update if you'd like.
Okay, our staff has been continuing to use our closure map. It's a GIS-based map. We have 3 roads that are currently closed. County Road 100, it's one of our, our normal roads that it goes over quite frequently. It's south of Georgetown. It's a north-south road, and it borders right along the Red River. We've got a closure on there. County Road 115, we've got a culvert washout that's northeast of Holly. And County Road 120, that was the first one that was another culvert washout. I was notified on that this past weekend. So we got those 3 spots. There's a township road. It's a very low, a township bridge that gets flooded over, and that's on 130th Avenue in Cragness Township. And that's, like I said, that's on the township system, but we marked that one as well. And then Mason Street is another very low. That's the Texas crossing that it's on the south side of Georgetown that takes off to the west there. And that's another one that's it doesn't take a lot of water before there's closure on that one. So other than that, our staff is hauling gravel right now. As you know, the roads are extremely wet. The frost is coming out. They're getting softer. So we're trying to, there's still some hauling going on. So we're trying to get out there and put some gravel down to get the roads passable for the public.
Thank you so much for that update. Any questions for Dave on those items? All right, thank you, Dave.
Yep, thank you very much.
Item 4 this morning is a request to move forward on our capital improvement plan for the highway shop projects in the cities of Comstock, Ulen, and Georgetown. Steve.
Good morning again, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Today before your consideration are 3 independent quotes, again, for those shops in Comstock, Ulen, and Georgetown. These 3 shops were a part of our capital improvement plan that's been approved by this board. As you recall, 2 weeks ago, Facility Director Joe Olson and Highway Engineer Dave Overbo opened bids here before the Commission as part of an RFP process. When we look at these projects, when we estimated them back in 2021, we had an engineer estimate right around $700,000. As we all know, through the execution of the RFP process, we had our lowest bidder at right around $1.6 million. The action was tabled at that time. Joe and Dave went back and reviewed the RFP documents and what was provided. And last week they came before this board and requested that the bids be rejected due to the cost. He also suggested at that time that we look at a quoting process to see if we could find a lower price and still do these projects, which this board approved. Joe and Dave conducted some value engineering over the last week. They reached out to multiple potential vendors and submitted requests for quotes. Per our procurement policy, we must have at least 2 quotes for projects that are above $175,000. Today before you guys, you each have a handout. One looks pretty familiar. It's going to be that capital improvement document here. And then we also have the quotes for the highway shop that have been provided by Joe and Dave. The highlighted yellow areas are the suggested bids that we accepted. And I think just for the board's knowledge, again, as we mentioned earlier, these projects initially came in at about estimated at $700,000. If you take a look at the highway shop quotes for Comstock, the updated quote process has a cost of $291,735. The Georgetown site has a cost of $295,542, and the Ulen shop, which came in at $294,761 for a grand total of $882,038, which again is over the estimated cost. One of the things that, as we met with the building committee through this process, one of the things that we wanted to identify is the right side, the capital bond projects. Throughout this project, as we've either built the projects or have been quoted through them, we've seen a savings in a number of different areas. Specifically in the highway areas, we had an LED lighting project that was estimated at $100,000 that we ended up being $28,755. Because of some of the work that they're doing with the cold storage and salt sheds, there's a project with the backlot parking that was estimated at $100,000, that between the city of Moorhead and MnDOT and Clay County, they determined that they were going to cancel that project. And so when we look at that, we look at the costs and the savings that we've incurred. We are looking at a situation where we would be able to cover the additional costs through the original capital improvement bonding dollars. We only have one remaining project that is yet to be bid out. That is the salt shed, and that's being handled by MnDOT. That's a shared building that we have, and as of right now, that we're estimating that at $300,000. And the discussions that we've had with Dave and Joe is that we are certainly feel confident that that's going to come in around that or even less. If you look at the capital improvement area, the black numbers on the far left, right side, shows the estimate. The red shows exactly where we are. And so when you look at everything that we've done to this point, our capital bonding project account still has $87,175 left in that account. As we've talked about with other projects, the capital bond dollars can only be spent on items that are within our capital bond documents that we provided Ellers. And so from our building committee standpoint, we feel like we're in a very, very good point to move forward with these quotes. I would just make a note to the board. One of the when you look at the different areas here, we have it broken down into buildings, electrical, mechanical, site work, concrete, utilities, and Joe also then has a small contingency and permitting fee just for any uncertainties that we run into. You're going to note that in all of the subs area from electrical down, that all of the items are the lowest bidder. In the building section, we have one of the three is the lowest bidder. And I want to make sure that I explain to the board and to the public of why that process is the way that it is. This board takes I guess a great deal of pride in making sure that we provide quality projects at the lowest cost. One of the challenges that we're faced with in this situation is when you use the quoting process under the procurement policy, we're only allowed to award one building project per vendor. And so in doing so, that only allows us to pick the lowest vendor in one item. I think that again, normally this wouldn't be a practice that we would recommend that comes before these boards for discussion. But I think one of the things that are different right now is the escalation of prices. Again, we saw through the RFP process that we weren't able to build that based on those bids. The quoting allows us to do that, but again, we can only select one builder per year, per vendor. And the challenge also is under our circumstances, we have to spend our bonding dollars within 18 months. And so we would not be able to actually complete all projects within that time frame. We have spent a great deal of time. Our auditor, Lori Johnson, who is on the call now, if there's any specific questions, has dealt specifically with the auditor, state auditor, in developing this plan. And so with that, I would yield for any questions.
Thank you. I know Commissioner Campbell has a question, and I'll allow him that. I want us to be really clear in this discussion, not only for this board, but for the public, because we are constrained by certain policies that are curious, but anyhow, I want the public to understand what's going on. So Commissioner Campbell.
Just a clarification on what you referred to, the procurement policy we have a maximum of $175,000 per vendor. And that's why we have to make these choices in the way that we do. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Campbell.
Any other questions? My only question is, I want to say I know an immense amount of work went into this. The second that we opened those bids, I know that between Joe and you and Lori and Dave, the amount of coordination to make sure that we are doing whatever we can to mitigate those high quotes was done. So thank you so much for the work that went into that. My question is, based on the highway quotes, there's 3 companies and we have to pick one company for each building. And based on what the estimate is, it's approximately $460,000-500,000 for the top piece, just the buildings, the shells. How come we couldn't pick the one from the lowest bidder out of all of them for one of them and then shuffle it around? It seems like we would have saved about $5,000. Does that go into the total cost that Commissioner Campbell was talking about?
Lori, maybe you touch on that. You had a majority of the discussions with our state auditor.
Yeah, our policy follows Minnesota statute, which only allows you to spend $175,000. So it's that $175,000 limit that we have to follow. So we couldn't choose, if our buildings were $50,000 a piece, we could choose one builder for all three. But since the cost of the building is 150 or whatever it is, that's what's constraining us to the one builder.
Okay.
Otherwise, we could choose the same builder for all three if it fell below that 175.
Okay, so I guess maybe what I was asking is, let's just say the Comstock building, if we awarded home that building at 138,000 and then shuffled the next, give Georgetown had Fultz at 140 or 54, 355, and then Morton had the Ulen building at 164, that would save us a little over $4,000 just on the building piece. That was my question.
I don't see any problem with that.
Does the board understand what I'm asking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think there would be a problem with that.
Okay.
I think the reason we did that is the home contractor is from Ulen, so we thought maybe it would be a little more convenient for him, but by no means do we have to do it that way.
Well, I don't want to suggest something that creates, if there was a method to awarding these, and certainly I understand Joe's on vacation, so I get that, but I don't want to propose something that would cost more than $4,000 in these bottom ones.
I think we could certainly do what you're saying without it wouldn't cause any additional funding. It would save a little bit. It'd be about $16,000 cheaper in like Comstock, for instance, and then what about 12,000 more in the other one? So it's to the tune of about 4,000, like you're saying.
Okay, and I would note too, just from a citizen standpoint, I think we know through different projects that we've run through earlier this year, due to that escalation, one of the biggest impacts have been pre-engineered metal buildings. And so from our citizen standpoint, while we may be paying a little bit extra to complete all of these projects at one time, when we look at the quarterly increases that we're seeing in pre-engineered metal buildings, it's very likely by the time, if we see the continued escalation, by the time we would complete these projects in multiple years, we would end up paying more than what we're paying right now. And so, in fact, we have one of our building vendors that is based on the demand for the buildings and their project. We only have through today to make this decision to hold our spot. And so it kind of shows the demand and the escalation of prices, how that impacts our projects.
Board questions, discussion? Commissioner Ebinger?
Just to clarify for the public, the state auditor has reviewed this entire process we're discussing today and found it to be acceptable under state regulations.
That is correct.
And the bonding money has to be spent within
18 months.
18 months. Okay, that's all.
Commissioner Gross?
Well, at our building committee meeting, we discussed these as far as who to go with and stuff like that, and I'm going to make a motion to approve the bids as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the bids as submitted from Commissioner Gross. So Commissioner Gross, would that mean you're approving everything highlighted in yellow on the
Yes, I am.
proposal? Okay. There's a motion. Looking for a second for the motion.
Madam Chair, I'm just trying to do the math here on this top piece here to,
Do you want to offer a motion for that?
I just want to figure out which is the best of the.
So I'd like to have a second to the motion to further discuss this piece. We can always
Second.
withdraw. Okay, Commissioner Ebinger has a second to the motion. Commissioner Campbell.
No, I'm just
Just 2 seconds. Do you want Commissioner Kaylee to?
Yeah, she can go ahead. Yeah.
Commissioner Kaylee?
I did the math while we were
Okay.
working it out, and yeah, it is about $4,000, just over $4,000 saved if we go with Home for Comstock, Foltz for Georgetown, and Morton for Ulen, which I believe is what Madam Chair was suggesting.
Correct.
I guess I don't see a reason not to go that direction.
I guess what I was just wondering there, if we were to change Home to Georgetown, because they're the same in both of those. So in other words, having Holmes do Georgetown, because it would, I think, going back to the comments that Dave made, it would be closer from geographic area where they're from, to do Georgetown, and then to have Foltz do Comstock.
Yeah, that would be a parallel move.
I guess that might be, I think it might be more reasonable for Home to be a little bit closer to home.
So,
And not that that should be a reason for us to do it, but there's really no other, there's still about the same savings in doing that.
So we have a motion on the table to accept as presented. Maybe if I might just offer a comment that this board would like to see a $4,000 savings approximately in those building awardees. So we're supporting the bidding process as a whole, except however staff feels the best way to coordinate those. Could we approve that change?
I would have no problem with that, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Gross, is that something you will allow staff to make the change, but we would like to see a $4,000 savings in the building awardees? Would that,
I'll go along with that
Yep.
if Dave can work it out.
okay,
Accept that.
so that reflects the motion and second. Any further board discussion on that?
I want to get Lori's opinion on that. Or do we have to be specific in terms of each location within our motion?
Lori, are you still
So,
on?
yeah, well, when you award the bid, you have to be specific as to which shop you're awarding each bid.
Madam Chair, with that in mind, I would like to amend the previous motion to change Home to the Georgetown building, Foltz to the Comstock building, and Morton to the Ulen building.
Okay. Commissioner Gross, would you allow that friendly amendment?
I approve that amended
Yep.
motion.
Commissioner Ebinger?
Yes.
Okay. Board discussion? Clear direction? Everyone understands? Okay. All those in favor of the motion of all of the highway shop quotes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you again for the work on that. I know a lot went into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5 is a request for approval to fund the purchase of a forklift for the storage facility. We have Sheriff Empting this morning in collaboration with Probation Supervisor Janelle Cheney. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thanks for having me this morning. I was hoping Janelle and Joe and Gabe would also be here to show the collaboration that we have amongst our four departments to make this purchase. The approval today is to purchase a forklift for the self-storage facility. As you're aware, that facility has some high ceilings in it, and we intend to maximize our storage by putting pallet racking on the walls. And then we are able to use this forklift to lift the pallet racking and several items such as sandbags, dog kennels, things like that for emergency management, other type of items for county maintenance, other items for the sheriff's office side, such as some larger evidence items and things of that nature. As you can see from the funding, it's taken 4 different departments to make this purchase. Not one department was able to do it alone. Joe did reach out to the 4 departments, and we were able to come up with the funds as they're listed there. That being said, I would yield to the board for any questions.
Thank you, Sheriff. Will we need to earmark certain funds? I think OSHA requires a safety course for anyone that would be operating that. Do we need to think about that?
That would be something that Joe's crew is going to be operating, so Joe would have to
Okay.
make sure that his people are trained. I'm going to stress that no deputies are going to operate that. So that would be Joe's crew. Would be.
Unless you put lights and sirens.
Yeah, we'll leave that up to Joe's crew to operate, and I believe they have operated forklift in the past, and they are also they're also willing to maintain this item as well.
All right. So you've identified the total purchase amount between 20,000 and 22,000?
That's correct. Joe did, I believe, locate a used one for that amount.
So in regards to the levy, there's no impact on the levy on this. They're all funds that have been allocated in a budget cycle previous.
Correct. We're not requesting any additional funding. This is all funds that we currently have.
Commissioner Kaylee.
Yeah, since this is coming from so many different funds, can you just walk us through how you work together to decide how much you're taking from where and what impacts that might have on those departments?
I can speak for the Sheriff's Office Contingency Fund. I was able to free up those funds due to the L2R disbanding. I had those funds allocated for something else, but with L2R disbanding, I was able to free those funds up, and L2R can pay for the other things that I had allocated for that.
What's L2R?
I'm sorry, L2R is Lakes to River Drug and Violent Crimes Task Force. With that disbanding, that freed up some funds within our budget. And then as far as the emergency management side of it, Gabe does have 10 to 12,000 in vehicle internal service that he is able to free up for that. I'm not sure how county maintenance or probation came up with their funding for it.
Madam Chair, in speaking with both Gabe and Janelle, Joe indicated that he felt like he had $2,000 within his budget that he could allot to that just based on savings in certain other areas. And the probation funding actually comes from Janelle's account that deals with the fees that they charge for those that are on probation. And so those annually they receive funds from different clients, I guess, to cover some of those costs, and that can only be specifically spent on certain things that impact those clients. This connection here has to do with the STS program, as they're housed out of that area, and so Janelle felt that would connect with those funds.
Any further questions? Board wishes.
I think looking at the size of that building, I think it is necessary to have that piece of equipment there. I'll make a motion to approve the forklift purchase.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gross to approve, a second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Our next item this morning is our committee reports. Just also a reminder for the public, this is an opportunity for us as commissioners to provide input on the different committee meetings that we attended during the week. But because of open meeting laws, it's also an opportunity for this board to provide feedback to the person that sits on the committee based on their wishes. It's not just a time for us to run through what we did to keep our week busy last week, but really an opportunity for feedback to be given so that we can really help provide insight to shape the mold of what this entire board's wishes are at those meetings. So I want this board to remember that you're always allowed the opportunity to question or provide insight based on what the reports are. So this morning, I would please ask that we start with Commissioner Kaylee.
Thank you, you, Madam Chair. On Tuesday, I attended the Adult Mental Health Local Advisory Council. That council is made up of professionals providing mental health services, consumers of mental health services, or loved ones of consumers of mental health services, and then me representing the county board as well. One of our longer time members, Jonathan Gilbert, passed away recently, so I just want to send our condolences from that group to his loved ones. He was a good member of that committee and a good man. The main point of discussion at that meeting was the report to the board, which will be coming up in May. So I would encourage you all to read that report, take note of the things that these folks, both professionals and consumers, are seeing in the community with regard to access to services, and we will hear more about that soon. Derek Swenson from the Moorhead Police Department was there, and he reported that as of that meeting, they had screened over 270 calls so far this year. And he's been working on trying to identify how many of the calls that they're getting coming in are actually related to a mental health crisis. And they're having some trouble with that because the codes that are associated with these calls range from loud noise, disturbance, all manner of things. And so it's not always clear what calls were really related to mental health services. But I think that speaks to the volume of calls that our police department is seeing. He also brought along with him Dr. Aaron, who is an embedded therapist with the Moorhead Police Department. And Dr. Aaron shared how he trains officers in mental health first aid, which is a certification program, so that when they do respond and there is somebody in a mental health crisis, they have training to respond adequately. He's also then available to officers to answer questions if they have questions about what happened during a call, how they could have responded better, and then also just helping them work through the trauma that they experience because it's significant.
Can I ask? Can I just ask you a question in regard, you mentioned about Derek Swenson and the calls that Moorhead PD gets. Do they get those calls directly to Moorhead PD, or is that something that still goes through Red River Dispatch?
Dispatch. Yeah, he was talking about the calls that went through dispatch, I believe.
Okay, I just wanted the logistics of it. I want to just understand how that works.
Commissioner Ebinger has.
I could address that. Under Travis's law in the state of Minnesota, any mobile mental health resource needs to be dispatched through a 211 entity. The calls go into 911. Right now, the state Northwest Emergency Communication Board that I serve on, we are trying to identify means by which to, and the public safety with AMC, we're trying to identify means by which a 211 system can be funded. It can't simply be strapped onto the 911 system, which right now we're dealing with. We have identified a mobile mental health resource within this community. However, the general consensus from law enforcement is it's not efficient to meet the needs we have. So we're going to have to reinvent the wheel on this. And this has been a topic of discussion not only with the Northwest Regional Communication and the AMC Public Safety, but it's also a discussion with the Red River Dispatch Center. What we're looking at on this is a need to dispatch these calls, not just in Minnesota, as we know, not just in a three-county area that's currently served by the provider involved, but in conjunction with our neighbors to the west. And our resources that could be rapidly sent are going to be within our metro, Fargo-Moorhead Metro. So there's going to have to be a lot of discussion and reinvention on this. It's not that's not bad news. It's good news. We know what we need, and we have a wonderful resource through the dispatch center and through some of the mental health providers in the area that are close enough to where we can design something to respond. But, like Dr. Aaron explained, we have mental first aid right now with our officers. My experience in dealing with these issues is you've got to get people in mental health crisis away from the uniforms and away from the onus of a police response whenever possible, as soon as possible. And so to have a mobile mental health resource within the community that can respond and do an intervention with either police as secondary support or not there at all, if it's not necessary for the safety of the people involved, is really the ultimate goal. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take your report away from you, but I am involved in these discussions through about 3 groups in my portfolio, and it's something that's a growing and necessary operation that we're going to have to do here.
That's precisely why I asked the question that I asked, and it was looking for that answer, and the fact you even said it yourself, you're working on it through 3 different areas of your portfolio. So how do we mend all these different agencies or groups of interest together in a way different than we've been doing in the past to better recognize a good solution? So, because we're all on all kinds of committees, and we all kind of protect the committees we serve on, but in some instances, do we have the right group set up to deal with an issue? And that's all I'm bringing up here. So I think there needs to be some, and I just like our chair said just a little bit ago, that we need to be able to have conversations or at least ask questions about the appropriateness of committees and who's on them, and when is an appropriate time to bring those together in certain issues. So, thank you.
Well, I think that probably I should comment on it just because part of the identification was our Lakeland Mental Health Mobile Crisis Unit, and I am the commissioner that serves on Lakeland. Certainly, Commissioner Cayley and Commissioner Ebinger and I have had discussion about how to mitigate that issue going forward. I think that, one, Lakeland has a $600,000 approximately grant that covers several different counties for the emergency response on that crisis unit. And we're not saying that this crisis unit is the answer to every single issue. When the sheriff responds to a call or the sheriff's deputies respond to a call, they're not all appropriate for that piece. And so there's a piece that we need to figure out, and certainly the Lakeland is a piece of it. And I think there's, if the city of Moorhead has concerns on some areas, there's a piece there. There's always been some overlap in certain things. But I do feel that there's a lot coming down the pipe that we need to figure out. At Lakeland yesterday, how does the 988 lifeline number go into play when all of a sudden it's supposed to be implemented on July 1st? What do we know about that? Is our dispatch prepared for that? What does that mean for that? I think those are discussions that we need to have. Mental health providers are having, county boards are having, police departments and sheriff's offices are having those discussions. What does that 988 piece play into it? Is it appropriate to go to the 911? Is dispatch then just, call 988, or who calls first link? There's so many different pieces in that. Some of it's operation, and I think we need to hear the discussions that we have at in other dialogues and bring it to the ones that make sense for you. 3 of you in this room are on the dispatch committee. I really think there's a lot that we need to figure out in terms of that piece. The one piece that I think that Commissioner Cayley's report was stemming around certainly was the flow of how that mobile mental health crisis piece works. That is not a law enforcement only crisis response. And I think that's the challenge, is that's not the intent. there's, if I'm having a crisis with my child 24 hours a day, I am, as a citizen, I can call that and receive 24-hour-a-day help. So I think there's a lot to this. As we all know, mental health is incredibly complex and incredibly challenging, and if any one of us knew the magic answer to that, man, we could really solve a lot of issues. But I'm hopeful, as Commissioner Kaylee said, that we have identified a first step forward with partners at the table, and then we'll kind of dispatch out to the other committees, I think, to help mitigate that. But sorry, I know you have more to your report.
No, this is an important discussion. Yeah. I'll skip ahead to the mental health piece from this meeting. They did report that in the last month, they had 22 dispatches within Clay County, and those could be either an in-person visit to a home to assist someone, or it could be via Zoom. There was a couple times where we had blizzard conditions and they weren't able to get out to somewhere, and so they do have that Zoom option, but always in person is the preference. But we don't want to leave somebody without a response. So if in person would not be safe due to the weather, then they have that Zoom option. Of those dispatches, 8 were for adults. I'm also on the Children's Mental Health Local Advisory Council, and I think that is worth noting that I hear that consistently, that mobile mental health is helping children more than adults. Not that that's a bad thing, that's just who is utilizing the service. So like Jenny said, if we're having a crisis with a child at home, that's a lot of who is calling this number. They had 10 stabilizations. One of those folks were hospitalized and 9 were able to remain at home. I also asked, because mobile mental health with our grant serves 3 counties, so Clay, Otter Tail, and Wilkin, I asked how many of those staff are in Clay County, and they have 8 full and part-time staff, which reside in Clay County.
What the? I'm sorry. I'm trying to, there we go.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Jenna. I'm just trying to get to an email here.
Yep. Yeah, so like we said earlier, I have a lot of committees that deal with mental health. Commissioner Ebbinger has a bunch. You have some as well. We do have a meeting coming up with a lot of the stakeholders involved from all different angles with our mobile mental health crisis response. Maybe we can take mobile out of there. Just our mental health crisis response within the county. And I hope that we can have a really open, positive discussion and identify some good steps forward to improve on what we've got and see better outcomes for our community. So that concludes my report on that one. Tuesday, we also had the Clay County Rural Cities and County meeting. That was well attended. It is so wonderful to get together with all of those folks and hear what's happening in the cities, what they're proud of, what their struggles are, and how they are moving forward. So thank you to everybody who participated in that meeting there. Wednesday, I had the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County meeting. They have some really great exhibits up right now. There's one that I particularly enjoyed. There's historic, I would say the name of it, but I would say it wrong. It's an Indigenous word. There's historic photos of Indigenous peoples from around the U.S. that have been colorized by a Minnesota Indigenous artist, and they're really compelling. So I encourage you to go check that out. There's another exhibit that just went up too on thrift design, so designing clothes and things that were made out of like feed sacks, for example. That's interesting as well. We also talked about, what the board would like to see in the future, and some of the ways that they assess the collection's quality, and what repairs might need to be made to artifacts. So that was that meeting. Thursday morning, I attended the Clay County Suicide and Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. We had a really great presentation that Karen Nitskorsky and Rory Beal gave on changing the narrative in how we talk about mental health and suicide. I thought it was really impactful when they discussed how we should change, in particular, how we talk about suicide to a person who died by suicide or death by self-inflicted injury. You know, when we say something like they committed suicide or it was a failed suicide attempt, we're really putting the emphasis in the wrong place. It should be people first. It should be our language should be well-being oriented and not on committed as a term of success. So we shouldn't be saying that. If you ever have an opportunity to go through that changing the narrative presentation, I highly recommend it. They also shared that there is a listening session coming up related to the New American Mental Health Assessment that was being done. There was a survey that went out to our New American community to get the feel for what folks are seeing and understanding and experiencing with regard to mental health services and struggles within those people groups in our community. And so this listening session is another data gathering piece that will be coming up. We're hopeful, I think Commissioner Ebinger and I are both planning to attend that, and we're hoping to get lots of good data and information so that we can be helping these neighbors get better outcomes with mental health services in our community. Also Thursday, I attended the Soil and Water Conservation District Pollinator Pint Night at Junkyard. Wow, was that well attended. It was packed. Congratulations to them on such a successful event. I do a little event planning in my other job, and I know what it takes to pull something like that off. They did a fantastic job. We had a great night. I had lots of great conversations with folks that were attending. People were really fired up about new pollinator spaces and planting seeds to take home and expand their pollinator gardens at home. So kudos to all those who participated in that. And then finally on Friday, I attended the West Central Initiative Spring Convivium in celebration of all of the initiatives going on in our region regarding climate change and Earth Day. Dr. Heidi Roop is a climate scientist with Extension, and she shared a lot of great ideas on what we could do as individuals, as families, as municipalities, as regions, and as a world to combat climate change. And one of the things that really stuck with me that she said is lots of times when we talk about climate change, we are planning for the future. And she said, no, we really need to be planning for today. These changes are happening right now. So how do we change what we're doing right now to be more sustainable today and then carry that forward into the future? Let me double check that I'm not missing something. I think that concludes my reports. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Cayley. Commissioner Gross.
On Tuesday, I also attended the Rural Cities meeting, and I was just wondering whether we should contact the cities that weren't there. There was 4 cities in my district that weren't there. You know, should we contact them and say, what can we do for you that you would attend this meeting? You know, what's missing, or you just aren't interested. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, but I thought it was interesting from the cities that were there, you know, just to hear how many lots they have available for building and stuff like that. I mean, I was glad to hear their reports, and I'd also like to hear reports from the other cities. I mean, I do attend some of their meetings. But I don't know if that would be appropriate to ask, why aren't you attending? What is it that we can do for you that you would attend something like that?
Commissioner Gross, I think that's a really good point. We historically have had that for several years now, and there are cities that continually attend, and I know we've tried to change nights around a little bit so it doesn't conflict with city council evenings, but certainly feel that, you know, having staff reach out to say in planning for our September, October meeting, would really like to hear how we can help you. Is there an evening
Yeah.
that would work better, or a topic that you would be interested in? That's fair.
Like I say, I don't know if it'd be appropriate or not, but I don't know, probably something like that should be done. I'd like to see more cities there just to see what they got going too. And I think they would get something out of the meeting too, as far as, you know, probably there are some things they could do, the grants that they could apply for, or whatever have you, you know. So, Wednesday I attended, in the morning, we had the detox meeting with Clyde McCarthy. There again, we went over whether we want that site for the detox to be a one-story site or a two-story site, and then we pretty much decided we were looking at a one-story site to go forward to that, and looking which way the building should face and how many parking spaces. We went over quite a few different concepts of what to do. We're also looking at attending the Gateway Recovery in Inner Grove as far as whether we could tour that facility, and I don't know if that's been set up yet or not. I don't think they've come up with a
Working on it.
good date yet that they're working on. Then, and also Wednesday afternoon, we had a building committee, and that was discussed fully at item number 4 on our agenda today. So that was pretty much what was covered at that meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Gross. Just to clarify a little bit on the detox piece, there are 3 different options in terms of floor sizes, and all of that will be presented to this board soon. So yes, there's a favorite that looks to be the most price conscious option, but this board will have the opportunity to vote on that. So, Commissioner Campbell.
All right, on Tuesday, the April 19th, we had a diversion executive committee meeting, and we had a couple of things that we had significant discussion on, and one was there are a couple of other federal projects that have been awarded through the federal program WRDA, and some of those entities, I believe one is from Texas and one is from California, are looking for some language changes within the WRDA bill language. And so our diversion staff has asked us if we should be monitoring that, because we're much further along in our process than the others are. And oftentimes when there's changes, the one thing you look for is there changes that could impact or be detrimental to what we've already done. And you know, so we've decided we're certainly going to follow the process, and we want to be helpful to any other state that is also working on a significant project such as ours. But we just want to make sure that any language would not alter our ability in the way we have our project financed. So, and then we spent some time talking about the RIMP program. Basically, that's what that is. It's a loan program that we have for some of our areas south, that over and above what we might do in terms of buyout, there's a loan program that the board had established had $5 million for, and there's some discussion now about raising that to something higher, maybe to $15 million. And again, that is a loan program that some of these landowners in the southern area would apply for under certain circumstances. So that's I believe that's going to be coming before the full Diversion Authority Board. I also attended the Rural Cities meeting that evening. I have nothing further to report on that, other than what's been said already. On the 20th, we had a building committee meeting, and the sole purpose of that meeting was to go over the issues that we dealt with today on the highway building projects. On Thursday, the 21st, we had our West Central Juvenile meeting. We went over quite a few things. The 2021 budget. We got a census update on each county's usage during the past 2 years and where that is. There was some discussion about our RFP that's out on medical services. There seemed to be a lot of concern and questions regarding our members regarding that and wanting to know what's going to be happening there. We continue to monitor issues related to legislation that goes on in St. Paul that could have impacts on the way our facility is run. And then we heard from our staff regarding some concerns over the food service quality. That's there, and there's some discussions going on there, and I think there will be more to come on that later. Yesterday I did attend, along with Commissioner Mojo and Mr. Larson and Kirk Rosenberger, our solid waste director. We met with MPCA on a couple of issues. We got an update on the funding. As you recall, we've requested additional dollars for our project due to overruns from the original application that we had submitted. And he talked to us about where that is right now in the process, and they continue to speak on our behalf for the need. He was pretty honest in his what he felt was the likelihood. Now that this late in the legislative session, that dealing with additional funding for bonding projects that had happened in 2020 might be difficult to obtain, but we will continue to work with that and speak with our local legislatures. And then we also we talked some about the SCORE funding. As you know, our request was to have the 25% of the solid waste management tax dollars that goes to the general fund be returned back to solid waste for the purpose of SCORE.
State
Kirk mentioned, huh?
State countywide.
State, yeah. And what apparently is moving forward right now on the House side is to increase from 70 to 73% funding to going to the environmental fund, which would then an additional 3% would go to SCORE, which is, I think the number that he said is about, and that's the House side, and then the Senate side just had a flat $750,000 going to SCORE for the entire state.
Right.
That obviously is significantly different than our original request of 25%, which amounted to several $1 million. So, and again, I think if it's a solid waste tax, it should go to solid waste purposes. So, yeah. So that was that meeting, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell. Commissioner Emminger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also attended on the 19th the Rural Cities and County meeting. It's been covered pretty well. I did want to bring up on Sheriff Empting's report a couple of things that we've addressed here, just as an update. The use of force and mutual aid issues that we looked at over the last couple of years involving the deadly force legislation that was passed in the state of Minnesota. Law enforcement representative agencies or organizations successfully sued and got Fifth Amendment rights for police officers and sheriff's deputies restored through that lawsuit, and that has opened the door for County Attorney Melton to present training to our North Dakota partners, and are willing to reestablish the mutual aid that we lost as a result of the legislation pre-litigation. Also, update on the Red River Dispatch Center. It was really gratifying to hear how our rural mayors feel that they're getting good services and good feedback from the Red River Dispatch Center. And as we develop looking at building a new dispatch center, I think it's a good thing that the county is comfortable with the services they're getting. Later, or directly after that meeting, I got to the last half of the listening session for the library sales tax over at the Moorhead Center Mall. This was a second in public listening sessions. Now the city of Moorhead and the library will be looking at specifics for inclusion in the community center issue that's being discussed on the increased sales tax. Sounds like they got great feedback from the public, some good ideas. Some people came in with concerns about it, and they were heard, and the topic was discussed. And I think the city and the library did a good job of planning this and giving a presentation. We'll see what happens as far as specifics about the development of the community center and library coming up in the next couple of months prior to the November vote. On the morning of the 20th, I attended the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC Executive Committee meeting. We had a long discussion about the Fueling Our Future retreat. They had presentations from Sioux Falls, which has a similar program. It's been around for a long time and has massive private sector involvement. Sounds like a good program. They're planning a joint EDC chamber meeting to discuss some of these things that came out of that retreat, including governance, funding structure, and private sector involvement. Also, we had a discussion about possibly on future projects for the EDC establishing some criteria. Does it provide jobs? Does it provide benefits? Involvement of local government, what needs to be done there, including incentives like TIFs. So that was an interesting conversation to be developed further down the road. On the 21st, I virtually attended the Clay County Substance Abuse and Suicide Prevention meeting that was reported on by Commissioner Cayley. I don't have anything to add other than the changing the narrative on mental health and suicide training session. If you get a chance to view that or attend it, it's an hour, 45 minutes to an hour long, and I think was very informative. And later that morning, I attended the West Central Regional Juvenile Center Board meeting that was reported on by Commissioner Campbell. One of the only thing I have to add to that is the omnibus bill that came through. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere, but once again, we have and it's not supported by Department of Corrections under my understanding, but it includes limiting disciplinary time out, putting kids in a room, in their room, where their parents have access, their teachers have access. They can leave the room and go to classes if they're under control. But it's such a critical issue for the discipline of this facility and keeping the kids and the staff in there safe. And to repeatedly have this legislation emerge is concerning. And it looks like the omnibus bill isn't going anywhere. But I really want to commend James O'Donnell, our superintendent over there, and his organization, statewide organization, for monitoring this, because as we've seen, some bad legislation can get through and it can create huge obstacles in the real world. So I'm glad that we were informed on that. Later that day, I attended the Lake Agassiz Library Executive and Finance Committee meeting, looked at the 2023 draft budget, discussed the union agreement, which is short of some signatures. It looks like there'll be an agreement with employees through 2024, and discuss some of the legislative issues. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Ebinger. Last week, I also attended the Rural Cities meeting. Grateful to those folks for sharing their time. We pitched the question in terms of what are the workforce challenges and opportunities that you're currently dealing with in your communities. A lot of discussion surrounding workforce and the businesses in their communities and how we can all work together to collectively support all of those entities. Thank you to our staff for attending that. It's really an opportunity for us to go to those cities and hear from them and collaborate and what services we can help them with. And I appreciate the update on the work detail and sentence to serve, a reminder to organizations that have summer festivals and need for a work crew to get out there. Those groups will be out and available for that option. So contact the sheriff's office or Janelle Cheney from probation if that's something that interests you. Last week, I also attended the Clay County Regional Detox Facility Planning meeting with Klein McCarthy. Really a pretty good information meeting in terms of size and scope and what exactly Clay County is needing in terms of how many beds and what does a potential mental health component look like in that facility. This board, as I said earlier, will have the opportunity to weigh in on the floor plan concepts. We did ask for a 1-story, a 2-story, and an option that allows for a future upward growth on that. Did identify a potential site on 15th Avenue North. This board has talked about that. We've not officially voted on that, but the plan will include that as an option. Talked about potential parking spaces needed and access as well. And Commissioner Gross did cover there's an option to potentially tour another facility in the state to look at opportunities that we may want to implement in our plan. I did not attend the Planning Commission meeting on Tuesday. I had a date with a newly crowned 4-year-old, so I did not attend that, but I will just update. There were several items on that agenda. There was a potential rezone, IUP amendment. There was another CUP, and 2 CUPs, and 1 IUP. Pretty good dialogue from that board. That board is so active and invested in those hearings. The first ones did go through unanimously. There was one further discussion on a request for the amendment to their interim use mining in Flowing Township. There's been a little bit of an issue in the past in terms of going over the allowed space usage. The board was quite pointed in terms of shortening that use to make sure that there is compliance. Certainly appreciate that. Shows flexibility on the Planning Commission's part as well. And then the other piece was a request for an interim use telecommunications tower and alliance that did pass. Just a reminder, I was not present at that, but feel it's important for the board to know. I attended the MetroCog Policy Board meeting last week. Good updates in terms of Q1 continues to be all within budget and scope. We did have an amendment to number 3 to the 2022-2025 TIP study that did pass. There was a long discussion on the selection of the consultant for the housing study. Fargo Planning has been quite involved in that dialogue. Clay County is represented well. The city of Moorhead has been represented well in terms of that. Nothing outside of how we generally approve consultants, but some North Dakota partners wanted additional discussion on that. And we did identify the TMA transition. As you all recall, because of the population threshold, our planning area will now move into a TMA. So we talked about how that will open up additional projects and funding issues, and discussed the 2021 traffic count maps and potential future planning study projects. I have talked with our Clay County engineer and staff about the importance of us being at those tables monthly to continue to advocate for the projects that we have coming up, particularly with the North Broadway Bridge. I think it's really important to continue to be part of those, to identify any potential funding sources for us there. And then yesterday, I attended the Lakeland Mental Health Board of Directors meeting. We did have the audit report for the center. That audit is available and will be ready for distribution soon. So I'll make sure and get a copy to Steve if any of you are interested in those audit reports. We talked about collaborative updates. We highlighted the access indicators sheets. As you recall, the past few years, the access days at the Moorhead clinic have been quite high in terms of psychiatric and therapist appointments. I do want to state that Mike McCarthy, our regional rep, has been a fierce advocate for lowering those access days, and currently we are looking at between a 1 and 6 day wait for the access for services there. I am thrilled with that. I know that there are staffing challenges, and so it's always a continuum in terms of making sure we have staff available, but I'm hopeful that our community can access those needs within a week. I think that's important. A lot of legislation update. As I talked earlier about that 988 crisis number, the goal is to never have a crisis call dropped, and so we're continuing to make sure we're talking about the streamlining of the process and who's answering and who's dispatching and who's responding on all of those accounts. Those continue to be quite important discussions, but it will be interesting to see how the rollout and training and public awareness. I said 911 is easy to remember. Is it 988? Is it 989? In a crisis, we have to make sure that we have the right dialogue so that the community knows exactly what's going on. And then administratively had Donna Baker, the CEO, and Tom Myslowski, the CFO, gave great reports for the center. And then the fun part of the afternoon was that we had the employee recognition, and there were several members that celebrated 20 and a 35 and a 40, and they even had a 45-year employee recognition, which is phenomenal. The change that all offices have seen over the years in terms of technology and service delivery, boy, it really is quite a feat to reach 45 years of service. So gratitude there. And then my last item of note is that I am aware that we're sending a couple representatives to the day at the Capitol this week, which is exciting because I think it's important to continue to advocate for needs at the Capitol. But I think because it's out of the original scope of the budget, we should probably have board action to approve that.
All right.
Okay. So Commissioner Cayley and Commissioner Ebinger are both headed down there, so I'd like the board to approve travel and expenses.
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Campbell to approve. Second by Commissioner Gross. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. And then yesterday we did have on the board calendar a MPCA site visit at the Resource Recovery Facility. That was canceled, so I just want the public to know we did not meet on that. And then also my other committee, I apologize, was that I met with Commissioner Campbell as reported with the MPCA. I still maintain that we should advocate fiercely for additional funding on the SCORE piece. I think that if it was intended to be a solid waste tax, that it should stay. I know that those are tricky when we get down to the final part of session and where everyone's target lays. Hopeful that what was reported is just maybe a 3 or a 5 year phase in, but continuing to advocate for that at the Capitol is vitally important, not only a AMC priority, but it's a Clay County priority as well. And then certainly we are facing a challenge in terms of needing to come up with additional local funding for our bonding project, and we will continue because we understand the vital need for that facility. We will continue to move forward with that, but really feel that it would be helpful to have additional share from the state. I understand that we're probably not going to achieve that this session, but I hope that we will continue to advocate for that. I think that concludes my report.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. This past Tuesday, I met with Kirk Rosenberger and Brett Rice in regard to the landfill project that's still going on. I also participated that evening in the rural city county meeting that has been addressed. And again, I will reach out to the other cities this week in trying to get additional input on hoping to get them in attendance to future meetings. On the 20th, I participated also in the detox planning meeting that's been covered in detail. Also participated in the building committee that's been covered by Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Gross. On the 21st, participated in the MCC JPA pre-meeting. We had an update on projects. We had talked about potential acquisition negotiations that will be on the agenda this Thursday, and also some property management issues on leasing the farmland. On the 21st, I also met with Rhonda Porter, Brian Melton, and some of Rhonda's staff in regards to, with MDH, in regards to exploring a federal program dealing with 4E eligibility and covering legal services for the families. We provide that service as needed currently. We know through studies that families that have good legal representation are more likely to stay in the home. Those that stay in the home, we know, are more likely to have less trauma and have future issues. And so we're going to continue to look at that as we learn more about that program and see if that could be a potential reimbursement option for the county. On the 22nd, again, we spent a lot of times working with Joe and also Dave in regards to the presentation today. Again, just want to echo the sentiment that's been shared by this board in regard to the amount of work that Joe and Dave did over the 1 week process. Turning that around certainly is going to save money on that project and ultimately money for our taxpayers. I also participated yesterday in the meeting with the MPCA and Kirk Kadelka. I want to thank him for meeting with us on extremely short notice and providing his insight to what he's seen down at the legislature. And also I'm talking with our Kirk Rosenberger. He is trying to reach out to our local representatives and see if we can get a virtual meeting to have some ongoing discussion with our committee. So I did receive information last week from the U.S. Treasury. Just about a year ago, we received our first allocation of our ARPA dollars. I should be getting a link here within the next few weeks to submit for the second half. And so I'll keep the board up to date with that. And just lastly, the last thing today I would highlight, after 32 years, Sharon Walls from our auditor's office is retiring. Whether you've met Sharon or not, every 2 weeks you get a reminder who Sharon is, because she's been responsible for our payrolls for years. So we thank her for all of her years of service. In order to do that, she's an employee that has to be here. She's has to be here every 2 weeks, and so she's put in some great work for the county. And so we're going to be having an open house for her Thursday at the Government Center from 2 to 4 if you're interested. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Sheriff, I know that you're still here, but I just maybe want to highlight Saturday is the DEA Take Back Day. Do you want to speak on where residents can deposit those, and actually year-round can deposit those?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We do have the DEA Drug Take Back Day on Saturday. We will have deputies stationed in Ulen Substation, in Barnesville, and Glendon Police Departments from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then yearly, they're able to drop those those unused prescriptions off at the law enforcement center. We have that year-round, and the Dorth Police Department also has an option available year-round as well for drop-off.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you. Any other items for the board today? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.